You need a huge budget to self-publish. This is a narrative that me and many other self-published indie authors have been taught for years, something we hear all the time, that self-publishing is very hard compared to traditional publishing because you need a huge budget, and that is just not true. I have published every single one of my 7 books, goose egg, $0, not cut corners, and I have made loads of sales, loads of friends, done decently. I'm going to teach you how you can do the very same thing. Here's to entry in self-publishing. I would say the number one thing is an editor that people talk about. That you absolutely need an editor if you're going to self-publish. And here's my 2 cents. If you can afford an editor, I think you probably should, and your book will only grow better. However, if you cannot afford an editor, which is a lot of us, I know, because editors are understandably very expensive. I'm an editor myself. If you're a really good editor, or if you hire a really good editor, you understand the value of an editor. An editor is quickly not sounding like a word anymore because I'm saying it so much. It is not the end of the world. It is very possible to still maybe ask your writer friends in the community to be beta readers for you. And I would say beta readers are an absolute essential part of the process. You cannot skip them, no matter if you have an editor or not. Because beta readers are the outside voice, the new pairs of eyes that will tell you what you cannot see in your novel because you've been looking at it for so long. What does and doesn't make sense, what should there be more of, what should there be less of, what needs to be fleshed out more, what character arcs make sense, and which details you thought you made sure made sense but actually don't. Thing that you just cannot see anymore because you've been reading and writing drafts of this novel for so long. It doesn't feel like a book to you anymore. It doesn't feel like a piece of art. It just feels like an analytical process to pick out typos and words on a page, which is inevitable if you're a writer. Editors. If you have beta readers and you can't afford an editor, you can take their beta feedback, you can incorporate it as best you can. You have to be willing to accept the criticism that they offer. If you really force yourself to see the flaws in your novel instead of like telling lies that every single thing is perfect, because girl, nobody is writing a perfect novel, let's be real. And it will come out probably more than decent. Maybe you can be lucky enough to have a friend who is an editor, edit it for free. That is not an option for everyone, believe me, but some people do get lucky with that. And it's hard to find an editor that you actually match with and fits your writing style and like understands the vision for your book and knows what changes to make for the sake of the book and what changes are just your writing style that they shouldn't change because it's a part of you, it's part of the book, you know what I mean? So if you cannot afford an editor, I would recommend not publishing your first draft. I would recommend getting at least like, I would say 3 to 5 beta readers is a good place to start, and really taking their feedback to heart, especially, you know, when you're sending out questions to them. Ask what is wrong with the book or what needs to be changed. Don't just ask who's your favorite character, like the things you want to hear. If you're hoping to publish, you do need to be open to criticism and hear that criticism and change that based on what they say. Reviews and you don't really want to make any money and you just want to tell the story that you want to tell, power to you. Everyone publishes for different reasons, so if you really don't care, you don't need an editor. And you don't need beta readers, that's fine. It all just depends on what your goal is, and I'm kind of making this video for people who want to be successful self-publishing and who want lots of good reviews. The book, like most authors do. Another big barrier to entry that I don't think we talk about enough is ISBNs, because they cost an arm and a leg. The numbers at the beginning of the book, I think it starts with 9 still. In fact, I have one of my own books right here, as you can see. Last I checked, and I haven't checked in a while, they're about $100 each, or you can get them in like a bigger bundle. You can get like a baker's dozen for $1,000 or something like that. But I haven't had to check in a while because my publisher, Draft2Digital, the platform through which I publish my books, the ISBNs if you agree to distribute exclusively through them. Again, last I checked. One of the reasons I've stayed with them so long and so loyally and why I love them so much and I keep using them for every single one of my books, because ISBNs are expensive, bro. They are. Again, I'm paraphrasing. If you can use our free ISBN, as long as you don't like take it and then copy paste it into Amazon when it asks for your ISBN, as if you bought it yourself, you know? But that's one of the reasons Draft2Digital has my heart and my loyalty, because just, ooh, it's such a lifesaver. Also don't need an ISBN, technically, if you want to publish, but it's likely advantageous to have one because it's going to get into so many more systems and records, and it's just going to be easier for distributors and libraries and, you know, all those places to find if it has an ISBN. If it doesn't, then it's just like a book with no name tag. It's kind of weird, but you can do it. Again, it depends on what your goal is. If you're just publishing something to share with like your immediate family and friends and you're printing all your copies yourself, you don't need it. Depends on your goal. And marketing. Marketing can cost a lot. It can cost very little depending on what your goal is, depending on what kind of marketing campaign you want to launch. But you can do it for free. You don't have to spend a fortune running ads on Amazon and Facebook that may or may not bring in readers. I can't really speak to that because I've never done it, but I think the most valuable, the freest, the most efficient marketing is social media marketing. Talking about the popular tropes in your book or some, noteworthy quotes from your book or an elevator pitch that is digestible, but it is a good means of finding other authors. It is a good means of reaching new readers, and it is a very efficient free way of marketing. So you might want to take advantage of it, as well as things like having a website and maybe a newsletter, which are also not entirely true that they're free, but they are very valuable and they don't cost like as much as an editor or an ISBN does to run forums. I can make another video about that. They're marketing for dummies, so comment below if you'd be interested in that. Barrier to entry that I think a lot of people, it's the first thing they think about besides editors, is the book cover. And I've talked a bit about this before. You can have a wonderful, beautiful cover that brings readers in without draining your bank account, because book covers are also very expensive and very understandably so. And I hope someday I will be able to hire a cover artist who I can give all the money they deserve, because they do amazing hard work and they deserve to get that bag. But what I can do is use Canva, because a lot of the designs are free and part of them you're allowed to use them for commercial purposes, and this includes their book covers. So they have so many different gorgeous books, and you can play around with the colors, the fonts, little stickers that you put on. A wonderful job of hooking in a reader, because we all do judge books by their cover, let's be real. Covers are the first things we look at when we see a book, like especially if it's in a collection or on a shelf like this. Like your eye is drawn to the pink of that one or the red of Dracula. Not thinking about the contents of those books, you're thinking about what the eye can see. You're feasting your eyes. That's what we all do. That's normal. That's fine. If you do want to sell and you want to bring in a lot of readers from a first look, you need to have a good cover that stands out, I would say. It doesn't necessarily need to be bright or colorful, because, that can vary greatly depending on the genre of your book, but it needs to stand out. It is perfectly possible to have a beautiful cover that is not going to cost you an arm and a leg. You can make it yourself. Other covers in your genre for inspiration and to know kind of what sells. Maybe stick to some similar visuals or features on the cover or fonts or, things like that. Like a fantasy cover is going to be vastly different from a horror cover, Free is ARC readers, where you send advanced copies of your book for free to close friends or close author community members, and they agree to leave a review on Goodreads, most likely in exchange for a free copy of the book. They might give you some free promo on social media about it, and it's just kind of a win-win for everyone. A couple months to a month before the book comes out, release day, on Goodreads, your book already has reviews, it already has been read by other people, and it looks like very professional, very put together, and it gives new readers an idea of what to expect. It's wonderful. If you don't do it a million times, it depends on what your goal is when you're self-publishing. If you want a ton of reviews or not, if you want to make a ton of money on it or not. I interview specifically indie authors who have books coming out very soon or have come out very recently. I let them have this stage to talk about their work themselves, what readers can expect in the book, and just showcase them, give them an opportunity. So if you are an author like that, please email me. I would love to have. That is it. There we go. Successful book launch in order to have a beautiful cover, in order to have a well-written, cohesive story that is edited to perfection. You don't need any of those things. They are wonderful things to have, and if you can't afford them, you probably should do them, because you're setting yourself up for more success the more that you can put into it, and your investment will come back for you. But if you can't do it, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you can never publish, because I used to think that way. I used to think that since I couldn't afford these things, my book wouldn't sell well and it wouldn't do well, and especially with social media marketing, that is just not true. You don't know what will blow up, and it is perfectly possible for your book to do amazingly. A cover that you made on Canva, no editor, an ISBN that you got for free. It sounds really like ramshackle together, but I promise it works. It has worked for me, and I hope that it can work for you too. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, if you want me to expand on any parts of this video, please comment below. Let me know if you want that marketing video in the future. All of my social media, my website, on my Linktree, which is always in the description. You can find The Night Auction and After the Order, which are my two newest releases this year. One is a queer romantasy, one is more of a action adventure romantasy. Queer characters, of course, always. And I will see you in the next video.